What's up, gang? Cameron Foos here with FoosAlerts.com. Just want to go over INO. Another epic day for this stock. It closed up another 24.5% after ripping 25% yesterday. So a huge, awesome play for us on this stock. This was a perfect Fous4 Gold Pattern that broke out of $1. Looking at the longer term chart here, that there was that 80-cent level. We'll take a look at the Thinkorswim chart. It's a little bit better illustration, and it basically ripped exactly where I wanted this to go. The actual alert and buy signal there was when this broke about 80 cents. I first went long 10,000 shares at 83 cents and just continued to buy as it neared the dollar breakout. And the target level here, as I had mentioned earlier, is about $1.50, which is where this stock had been previously spiking out back in 2010 and 2011. So that's obviously going to be an area where this stock kind of halts out, and that's exactly what it did today. It hit into the 150s, and that was all it gave us. Just intraday wise, but I sold everything, made $10,000 on INO, but I did buy back into the close. So let's take a look at what happened intraday wise and why I sold the stock this morning and why I got back in into the close of the day. So right out of the gates here this morning, we are gapping open. We are in the 140s, looking like we're potentially breaking out of 143. You can't actually see the intraday action as of right now, being is that it's you can only see it on this chart during the mornings. But I sold partial shares this morning at about the 140 level, 5,000 shares, just locking in some profits, and then sold another 5,000 at about 136, I believe it was, when it looked like we were potentially breaking down here. We're breaking down new lows. I wanted to see it kind of flag and potentially rip to the upside, but I was still holding 5,000 shares just in case we started to rip back to the upside and we potentially formed an F1 and ripped even higher and potentially into the 150s. So soon enough, this thing came back, felt some support at the low 130s, and then started forming up an F1 pattern here with a potential breakout at about 144. So that was an F1 breakout that actually didn't get momentum right off the bat when it broke out here. I added 2,000 shares at, I believe, 142 it was. Let me double check. I think it was 142 for about 2,000 shares. And going forward, it still rode the 13 EMA on the 1-minute chart, and then I actually added another 5,000 shares here at 148 as this was looking like it was flagging again. It broke that first initial F1, didn't get any huge momentum, came back down, broke down there for a second, but still held the 13 EMA on the 1-minute chart here. And as soon as that broke 148, I added another 5,000 shares, and from that point it ripped up into the 150s, hit a high of 157. So basically about a 10-cent rip almost from that second 5,000 share add at 148. In addition to that 2,000 shares that I added at 142 on the F1, plus the additional 5,000 shares I was still holding from about $1 per share. So as soon as that spiked up into the 150s, it was hitting that resistance level that was basically my profit target, was about 150. So once we spiked above there and looked like we were kind of pulling back a little bit there, I sold at about 152 as well as 153. So I got rid of everything there, locked in about $9,800 in profits on INO as we got in and out of this thing several times, but still had a core position on this stock throughout this whole time of when we first initially bought into this at 83 cents as that pulled back towards that support level. And then look at this thing just exploded so hard. A huge volume today. Definitely a very, very bullish stock. I definitely don't think that this is totally out of play now. I think this could even still rip towards dollars per share, as I illustrated many times in the Fous4 DVD. Gold patterns can definitely, and a lot of times always do, rip, just go from 1 all the way up to $2 per share or higher. The problem is having the patience to do that. I've never had the patience to do it. As I've said many times, it's just extremely difficult, just like with FNMA. Remember this? I got into this when in the 90s and 80s down here. I had about 40,000 shares below $1, and I sold it at 120 and 150. Next thing you know, it was up $5 per share. when I could have made, a retarded amount of money on FNMA. I identified the pattern. It was a perfect gold pattern. Unfortunately, I just don't have the patience to hold the stock that long. But, as always, as long as the stock holds a 13 EMA, there's really no telling how high it can go. So, INO, this thing is still definitely extremely bullish. Lots of momentum going on here. Huge volume in at the end of throughout the whole session today. 32.8 million shares here. So a lot of action going on. There's definitely going to be some volatility on the stock, and some movement to the both upside and downside to take advantage of. But going forward into tomorrow, I definitely still think that there's momentum here on INO. I had been following this stock pretty much all day. In addition, like I've said many times before, and the reason why I only do Fous TV for the first 2 hours is that's typically, a lot of the times when the only action happens. As you can see, as soon as this thing hit that first spike in the morning, I bought in more shares, quickly sold the spike right out of the gates, and that was basically all the stock did for most of the day. So a lot of the times, the morning hour or two is really the only thing I like to take advantage of. The rest of the session is a lot of sideways action that's much more difficult to predict. Trading the mornings is definitely kind of my go-to strategy. And so sitting here on Fous TV for, 8 hours or whatever the hell it is, to talk about nothing when the stocks is sitting here going back and forth, doing nothing all day, there's no point in doing that. That's why I stick to the first 2 hours of trading, because it's a good area to focus on, and it's what I'm good at, and that's where you can take advantage of a lot of money and be done for the rest of the day, or go take a break while this, nothingness happens all day, and then come back in for the last couple hours and try to buy into F3 patterns, and that's exactly what I did here on INO. If we look here, this has been consolidating here at about the 145 level, kind of forming this nice intraday triangle pattern throughout the most of the session. I have been watching this at 144 to 145, trying to anticipate this to break out to the upside. I did buy another 10,000 shares into the close at 144, and we did pop to the upside and closed at 147. So decent looking, stock chart intraday wise. That is kind of an F3 breakout here into the close. It didn't close at highs of the day. There's still that resistance up above, but did get some nice momentum into the close, breaking out above this triangle pattern. It's almost kind of like a survival pattern on an intraday scale. We had the nice big spike up in the morning, came back down, found a support level. Now we have an intraday triangle breakout. So next resistance level here is those previous highs. Could just be, a day trade scalp up to 156. That's $1,200 on 10,000 shares. So could be a quick and easy trade if I can get this to push up that high, up to that level. Or maybe I'll hold it a little bit longer and see if we have more momentum than that. I really don't know until tomorrow morning. But as of right now, the last after hours sales that went through, we're at $1.50. So we're up about 2% or so after hours from the closing price. I definitely still think that there's potential for this to run upwards of $2 per share, but it's going to be a wild and crazy ride. So we'll see how it goes. Also, a stock like this on INO that has a huge run up like this, I pull back towards the 13 EMA coming up here after this gets some time to consolidate and whatnot, is definitely a potential trade coming up as well. But anyways, that's just INO. Made $10,000 in the stock in a very short amount of time. Bought in at 83 cents. 3 days later, we're up 70% or so, and there's 10 grand. This is Fous4. That's a gold pattern. Learn this stuff. Go take the class. It's worth it. If you haven't, you're missing out, and you're stupid. That's all I gotta say. But anyways, I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. Let's try to make some more money.